The closing of the parable of the Good Samaritan that we just heard is the instruction to go and do likewise. Not think about doing something, not ponder and study what we could maybe possibly do sometime, not go and talk about it, not go and find other people to do it for you. Go and do. I always feel like that should be printed above the exit doors of our churches so that we're reminded as we leave, go and do. You all knew I was going to shape today's sermon around our Habitat build back in June and our experiences in Saugeen First Nation. And of course I am. To me, that's a great example of putting our faith into action. We heard the message to go and do, and so we went and did. I'm going to show you a little video in a few minutes that we made up on site. We took some of our tech equipment up there, and Victoria interviewed the church members that were there working on the build. She asked each person what prompted them to volunteer for the build, and whether they felt it was meeting their expectations. And then she took some of those video clips and wove them into this presentation. I was tempted to just show a few of the clips. It's a little bit long, but in the end, I decided to run it in its entirety because there's a lot of important things in it that I want to highlight. And I wanted you to hear some other voices talking about the build, not just my own. So I want you to take note of several things as you watch the video. First, think about the fact that 11 of the 25 team members came from this little rural community of faith. On a normal Sunday, we have 40 people in church? And we had 11 on that build. That speaks really well of this congregation's commitment to doing the work of our faith. I also want you to take note of the range of ages represented on the team, from a young of 19 to something around 4 times that. I want to be more specific. In fact, we had a grandma and granddaughter along on the build in Diane and Candace Golding. How cool is that to have a grandma and granddaughter working the build? Then notice during the first segment when Reverend Bill comes on, how perfectly he sums up what we're doing there. And think about how blessed we are to have an outreach minister who is not just a gifted preacher, but who's actually willing to come out and sweat alongside the rest of us. That's not just preaching about outreach, that's living it. Note also the background of the videos, the work that's ongoing. The walls you see standing are standing as a result of our team's efforts. When we arrived, those walls were not up yet. What you see is our work. Next, there's a little scene I want you to take note of. You'll see Reverend Bill walking back to the build site after lunch. And he's walking alongside a young guy from the team who's not part of this church family. That young guy is one of my daughter's best friends. He's been a friend of my family for years now. He and his brother were an active part of the build. They're not church-going type guys, but they spent 2 days working alongside Reverend Bill and the rest of us. That's a kind of silent outreach that goes a long way toward changing the perception, the negative perception often, about churchy type people. I feel like that's a really important thing. Every time somebody who's not part of our church family, a friend, one of the Habitat team, or one of the community members where we're working, every time one of them sees us living our faith, going and doing the work, living it out in actions, not just words, I feel like we've imprinted some little part of what we mean by Christian onto their hearts. In Reverend Bill's sermon back on July 23rd, he talked about sowing the seeds, not always knowing when or if those seeds would take root. Well, having people from outside of our community of faith work alongside us, doing important work, is exactly that kind of sowing of seeds. There's no way of telling when or how those seeds might bear fruit. And also, when you watch the video, you'll note that several people speak about the significance of this being an Indigenous build, and how important it was as an act of reconciliation. An act of reconciliation. Not just words about reconciliation, but action. I'll be talking further about reconciliation later on, because it's extremely important to me, and it was a big part of the reason and the way I organized the build. I'm going to ask the team to run the video now, and then we'll talk some more.
What's going on?
We're helping build a house for Habitat for Humanity.
For Saugeen's First Nations.
And that's the right thing to do.
So My name is Lisa Campbell, and I work for Habitat for Humanity Grey Bruce as their partnerships manager. And part of my role is to coordinate team build events, such as the one that John Bedell's team has taken part in for the last 2 days. We started a partnership agreement with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation back in 2016 with the Chippewas of Nawash unceded First Nation up in Cape Croker. It has duplicated into Saugeen First Nation, which is where we are here today, and resulted in 28 houses being built on First Nation territory in partnership.
My team is I think there's 11 of us that are affiliated with St. John's Stevensville, which is wonderful. A couple of young colleagues that I used to work with before I retired. My sister, who always supports whatever thing I have going on. Several people from previous Habitat builds that I've gotten to know. So 25 of us, which is astonishing to me that 25 of us all came up here to make this happen.
I just like building and helping people. I've always had that big sense of I want to help the community. Just coming to Habitat has allowed me to feel satisfaction in helping others.
I'm here because John wouldn't leave me alone. He just kept bugging. No, that's a lie.
I came to extend my Habitat for Humanity experience. And I guess more importantly, the fact that this is an indigenous build, I see this as a very positive step that I could take as my beginning contribution to reconciliation.
To learn something new and for the fun and to meet people and work with the community.
Well, I didn't think I could do it. I was interested, but it wasn't until a friend said they were going to go, and so I said I'd come too.
I'm here because I wanted to experience a habitat build, which I've never done before. And I was especially thrilled that it was an Indigenous build on First Nations. So that's really why I'm here.
Because Habitat is an organisation that I volunteered with for 7 years. The work that they do I feel is amazing. Everybody deserves a place to live, and having the opportunity to be on a 2-day build is just unbelievable and more than I ever expected.
I tried to get here last year and was a little late in letting them know that, but I was glad that I was able to join the team with my granddaughter this year, and it's been a very positive experience for us both.
Well, my grandmother let me know it was going on, and that's how I got connected to it. So, yeah, and of course I wanted to come and build and help out a community, so.
Because I think that this is the way that we actually live out the gospel that we proclaim. And so this is really putting the gospel, the good news into action in a very tangible and palatable way.
The timing turned out to be absolutely perfect because we came in and within the first morning's work we were raising walls. So we have actually framed walls on 3 houses. This was almost the perfect time to bring in a big group because when you're framing walls you can use a whole lot of people and make them all productive. And the whole team has jumped in to do various tasks. There's been nobody that has been underutilized, and that was one of my fears.
We learned that we can join a group and get to know them well and work with people that know how to build and pick up some of their tips and guidelines. And
You know what? It's been wonderful. I had no idea what I could do to help. So I really feel like I have accomplished stuff.
Using the nail gun. Like, even though it's loud and it's fun. It's fun. My aim may be a little off, but like, still hit the stud sometimes.
I got to do a lot of stuff that I spent a lifetime doing that I haven't done for 20 years. So it's been kind of neat.
The confidence and leadership that we've got from the Habitat team has been unbelievable. I feel like I've learned so much, made so many new friends. It's just unbelievable.
The people that are working with the volunteers are amazing. They don't make you feel inadequate. They encourage everything and help you to try stuff. And
working with tools and learning how to build a house and come back again and learn more.
It was awesome meeting other people that we haven't ever met before, and how connected everybody was kind of cool. Just hearing everybody else's stories and what they felt when we experienced the first day. It's really filled me with gratitude for the experience.
Everyone's so nice and supportive, and they're like, that's okay, we all make mistakes. The teamwork is really great here. Even though we don't know each other, it's like we become friends in such a short time.
I've got to learn a lot new skills and see everybody work together, and most people were learning as well, doing their first builds. Just putting together the walls and getting to use the saw, getting to use the nail gun, just everything, learning journey. Yeah, it was good.
And I did try the saw, but it was a little too hard for me. And
I didn't get into any of the power tools, but I'm really good with an X-Acto blade and a plumb line.
And we can see you've still got all your fingers.
Yeah.
Well, actually, using a nail gun for the first time was a great experience. Swinging a sledgehammer was a great experience. Sitting around with 25 other people last night and sharing our stories was really was a great experience, and finding out why other people are kind of finding their way here, recognizing the consequences of the past, but also the hope for the future.
To share this experience with 25 other, I think, like-minded people that saw this as an important thing to be done.
I couldn't possibly be more thrilled with the results that we've accomplished. So yes, it met my expectations big time.
We would like to sincerely thank John Bedell and his incredible team of awesome folks that have come to join us for the last 2 days at our build site. We welcome you back with open arms whenever you want to come and return. Thank you so much.
Turn out the lights, the party's over.
Okay.
Linda, are you trying to work while eating ice cream?
It's a talent of mine, I have to say.
Thank you, Victoria, for putting that together. This seems like a good time to mention that in addition to all the work that we accomplished and all that we learned there and all the fun we had doing it, we also left a financial contribution of $5,187.89 from our team. And that was raised by the team's fundraising and what we all chipped in towards the build. The church covered two registrations as our youth contingent. Everything else came from the team, so we didn't take resources from the church to pay that bill, and we left that huge donation to continue our work after we're gone. Before I move on, I should point out that even though I always talk about outreach and going out and doing the work our faith inspires, I'm not diminishing the work that takes place in this place as well. You can't just do the outreach without also studying and talking about the foundations of this faith of ours. In a world where we're constantly bombarded with challenges and uncertainties, our faith serves as a beacon that lights our path toward peace and hope and better life. But that requires a ministry team like ours that keeps us focused and thinking about something greater than ourselves, an active force that propels us to want to make a positive difference in the world. We need a ministry team like ours that challenges us to step out of our comfort zone, to bring love and compassion to those who are suffering, and to stand up for justice in the face of adversity. In this place, we talk all the time about the work of our faith. Our offering song talks about good works of service, not just gifts of money, but service also. Our sung blessing at the end of each service says, we're going to live Jesus, follow his teachings. This we will show in our words and our ways, not just words, but our ways, our actions. And our pastoral prayers often include the reminder that the answer to our prayers often depends on the work of our own hands. Every major faith, including ours, has some version of the golden rule. For us, it comes from Matthew 7:12. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We sure didn't live that instruction when it came to our dealings with the First Nations people who already lived here when we arrived on this land. And we certainly didn't live out our faith in our misguided attempt to bring civilization to the poor savages. Instead, what we gifted to them was broken treaties, reservations, residential schools, diseases like smallpox and measles, pollution, and so on. We could have and should have learned so much from them about living in balance with the land instead of trying to conquer it, but that was surely not the colonial approach. When I did my first habitat build on Indigenous territory, our team leader arranged a side trip one evening to the teaching rocks at Petroglyphs Provincial Park. The translation of one of the interpretive panels touched me then and ever since. It said, of all the teachings we receive, this one is the most important. Nothing belongs to you. Of what there is, of what you take, you must share. That's kind of their version of the golden rule, and it has great wisdom. I know the United Church has already recognized and apologized for our role in our treatment of Canada's Indigenous peoples, especially the residential school debacle. But we're still working on a path forward toward reconciling what has happened in the past and what has to happen in the future. Our team in June took a huge step forward in walking that path. We did some studying before the build because our First Nations have a rich history we don't always recognize. When you go off to do a First Nations build, there's a very real danger of considering ourselves to be the white saviors going to help the poor natives. But when you educate yourself about the realities, you soon realize that the First Nations people here are not the poor relatives of our Canadian family. That's our white colonial attitude in play. Educating ourselves means recognizing that at the time colonial forces arrived here on Turtle Island, there were fully formed communities and nations amounting to tens of millions of people, and they had lived here on this land for thousands of years. We didn't discover this land at all. As I've said many times before, I'm not a fan of talking about religion. Too often religion to me is about dogma and doctrine and ritual. I like to ponder questions of faith instead. Faith has always played a significant role in shaping the world we live in. It's what provides a framework for moral guidance, for a sense of community, and a connection to something greater than ourselves. But what truly brings faith to life is when it transforms into action, when our beliefs motivate us to make a positive difference in the world. Faith in action is a testimony to the transformative power of God. It compels us to step beyond our limitations, to serve our fellow human beings, and to strive toward a more just and compassionate world. So with God's help, let's live our faith, not just in our hearts and our minds, but in our actions. And as always, thanks be to God.